The Oregon coast may look calm and rugged, but deep below it, something far more dangerous is stirring. A hidden force that could change the entire west coast in a moment.
In the past 24 hours off the coast of Oregon, they come just about a day after a 5.8 struck 100 miles off the coast. That was last night. These quakes now ranging from about 2.7 all the way up to that 5.8, according to the U.S. Geological Survey.
The Oregon coastline, jagged, windswept and beautiful, has long drawn adventurers and dreamers to its edge. Its cliffs, shrouded in mist and pounding surf, have an ancient, rugged feel, as if they're standing guard against the Pacific's hidden fury. But what most people don't realize is that there's something ominous brewing far beneath these peaceful shores. Something that could reshape the entire West Coast in an instant. Recently, a wave of spine-tingling discoveries has begun to surface. Shifting ground, creeping faults, and warning signals deep underground. Seismologists are sounding the alarm. The very land beneath Oregon's coastline is on the move, under constant strain. Even more unsettling? New research reveals that Oregon isn't alone. The entire Pacific Northwest, from Northern California to British Columbia, sits atop the Cascadia Subduction Zone, a geological monster primed for a devastating quake. We're talking about uplifted beaches, earthquakes that could last 5 minutes, and the looming threat of tsunami waves taller than a 10-story building. And now, heightened seismic alerts, strange tremor swarms, and evidence that two of America's most infamous fault lines may be interacting in complex ways. In today's deep dive, we'll explore 20 jaw-dropping discoveries and breakthroughs direct from the coastal faults, seismic labs, and seafloor corridors, uncovering why Oregon is at the center of a geological countdown. So before you head for a walk on Cannon Beach, hit that like button, subscribe, and strap in, because what you're about to learn might just change how you see the ground beneath your feet. Chapter 1. Coastline. Uplift, land rising in real time. Picture standing on Oregon's blustery cliffs, only to find out the ground beneath you isn't as solid as you think. In recent years, geologists detected a notable rise, nearly 4 centimeters, across stretches of the coast. Sensors, which once sat level with quiet tide pools, are now registering persistent upward movement. What's causing Oregon's land to climb skyward as if preparing for a clash of titans? Is this the prologue to the next great quake? The answer? This uplift is unmistakable evidence that immense tectonic forces are straining under the Cascadia Subduction Zone. Far offshore, the Juan de Fuca plate is sliding relentlessly beneath North America, bending the crust upward. Pressure builds, the land swells, and eventually it must snap back, releasing centuries of stored energy in one explosive event. Scientists believe this is the classic setup for a megaquake, with every millimeter of uplift acting as a ticking clock counting down to devastation. But the story doesn't end there. The uplift is not entirely uniform. Some areas rise more rapidly than others, creating subtle warps in the landscape. Roads buckle gently, tide pools tilt away from the sea, and the roots of coastal trees become more exposed as the land embarks on its slow, unceasing climb. Surveyors, returning to their markers after mere months, sometimes find them a finger's width higher than before. Locals, too, have started noticing small anomalies. Docks sitting unevenly, harbour pilings protruding more conspicuously, and low-lying marshes seemingly draining without clear reason. Each small change is another note in the swelling symphony of tension below.
Chapter 2.
Swarms of shallow tremors, nature's warning drums. Suddenly the ground shakes, not once but dozens of times in rapid succession. Across the Oregon coastline, tremor swarms are lighting up seismographs with uncanny regularity. Sometimes these swarms are felt as subtle shivers, other times as long, rolling vibrations that seem to arrive out of nowhere. Why are these mysterious tremor swarms appearing, and what are they trying to tell us? Seismologists point to slow slip events, where entire sections of the fault gradually creep past each other in spasms that don't always cause surface damage, but do transfer stress to adjacent zones. These swarms signal that hidden faults are moving, lubricating, and loading up with the energy required for larger quakes. Their increasing observation suggests the subduction zone is entering ongoing active phases, a warning that something bigger may be looming offshore. The swarms often begin deep underground, typically between 25 and 35 kilometers below the surface, where pressure and temperature rival those at the ocean's depths. Data from digital seismometers shows that these episodes can persist for days or weeks, traveling north and south in rolling waves of tectonic unrest. Occasionally, coastal residents notice faint, thunder-like rumbles or the creaking of old buildings, a subtle sign that the planet itself is alive, restless, and in flux. For many, it's a wake-up call. Not all dangers come with sirens. Sometimes, warning comes as a barely perceptible shudder, repeated again and again, until finally it breaks. Chapter 3. Seismic alerts, a signal no one can ignore. As these signals accumulate, scientific agencies have placed the Oregon coast under heightened seismic watch and have issued increased warnings. While terms like red alert are part of USGS's seismic event communications following earthquakes and aren't typically issued proactively, the reality is that pressure is visibly accumulating. What could trigger such serious concern for Oregon's quiet shoreline? This uptick in alert status is the result of converging evidence: tremor swarms, rapid coastline uplift, and anomalies in ground tilt, all pointing to dangerously high stress under the Cascadia Subduction Zone. With pressure building and seismic signals intensifying, scientists believe the risk of a major quake is higher than background levels. This alert isn't just a heads up, it's a call to action for emergency planners, city officials, and the millions who live near the water's edge. Communities up and down the coast have begun rehearsing evacuation routes, updating infrastructure codes, and stockpiling emergency supplies. Hospitals run drills, schools conduct preparedness events, and local radio stations break in with earthquake readiness tips. Signs posted along coastal highways warn, "Tsunami hazard zone. Go to high ground if you feel an earthquake." For the first time in a generation, the threat of the big one feels viscerally real, compelling leaders to coordinate region-wide planning before today's warnings become tomorrow's reality. Chapter 4. Cascadia and San Andreas, seismic siblings. Two of America's most notorious geological nightmares, the Cascadia Subduction Zone and the northern San Andreas Fault, have long been studied separately. But new research suggests a seismic connection. Stress released on one fault might influence the other. How could the fate of Oregon's coastline depend on a fault slicing through California? Geophysical mapping and simulations have shown that stress released on one fault may physically influence ruptures on the other, even over long distances. While a true simultaneous rupture is unlikely, increased pressure or movement in one system could affect the other, turning the West Coast into a vast, interconnected danger zone. Models highlight how seismic waves generated by a rupture in one fault can unsettle the balance of pressure in another. Evidence from historic earthquakes, like the documented 1700 Cascadia event, shows that different fault systems can interact in complex ways. Emergency managers now monitor not just local signals, but seismic activity hundreds or even thousands of miles away, aware that the West's geologic web spans a vast area of risk. Chapter 5. The inevitability of the Megaquake. Scientists aren't mincing words. In this region, a massive earthquake isn't an if, but a when. The Cascadia Subduction Zone has produced devastating events every few centuries, yet most Oregonians have never experienced one in their lifetime. Why is a gigantic earthquake almost certain for the Pacific Northwest? Geological records, tree rings, ancient sand deposits, and indigenous oral histories tell the story. Every 300 to 600 years, the zone unzips from Vancouver Island to Northern California in a megaquake, with magnitudes reaching up to 9.0. It's a cycle written in the land, and right now, geological evidence says the region is within the next possible window for such an event. Archaeologists have traced tsunami sand to 1700, when the last full margin rupture occurred, destroying villages, altering rivers, and sending massive waves that reached Japan. Native American accounts recount forests sinking below the waters in a single night. Layered charcoal deposits reflect ancient wildfires, likely sparked by shaking earth and toppled hearths. Each sign points to a destructive recurrence that's not just history, but a clear warning. Chapter 6. The 5-minute shake, quake of a lifetime. Imagine the earth trembling violently for 5 endless minutes. Unlike most earthquakes, which last mere seconds, Cascadia's potential big one could drag on relentlessly. How could a single earthquake sustain such motion for so long? The answer lies in the immense scale of the subduction zone. At over 600 miles long, if Cascadia ruptures along its full length, the quake's energy could travel huge distances, reverberating off geological barriers. This means that as towns and cities along the Oregon coast experience the initial jolt, the earth keeps moving, buildings sway and buckle, and infrastructures are subjected to a severe test. The longer the shaking, the greater the devastation. Older homes and buildings not built to seismic codes may crumble. Even modern structures could sway to their limits. Bridges buckle, roads split, and pipelines rupture. The shaking may disturb riverbeds, release landslides from steep headlands, and send up clouds of coastal dust. During such a crisis, emergency responders must hunker down and wait. The first burst may be followed by more devastation, including aftershocks and possibly a tsunami. Chapter 7. The tsunami threat, walls of water. It's not just the quake. What follows could be even worse. Tsunamis, unleashed by abrupt shifts in the seafloor, can send walls of water up to 100 feet high, surging toward the shore. How can the coastline prepare for a wave taller than a city building? Geological studies show that during previous Cascadia events, whole forests were swept away or buried. Simulations indicate coastal communities may have only 10 to 20 minutes between the quake and the tsunami's arrival. Emergency plans are evolving, but many experts believe there isn't enough high ground or enough time for everyone in the tsunami zone to reach safety. Communities like Seaside and Newport are drawing new evacuation maps. Schools conduct tsunami drills, teaching children to head inland as soon as the shaking stops. No time to take belongings, just run. The reality remains sobering. Low-lying areas, resorts, and highways could all be inundated, leaving only rooftops and tall trees as possible refuges. In past events, survivors described walls of water roaring inland, sweeping away houses, cars, and boats before pulling the debris back out to sea. Take a stroll along some Oregon beaches and you might notice something strange. Lines of ancient shell beds or raised beach terraces higher than the current shoreline. What do these silent steps in the sand secretly reveal? These uplifted beaches are proof of past megaquakes. During a large rupture, the land may abruptly rise or sink. Soon after, tsunami sands flatten the area, leaving markers that can be carbon dated. Scientists use these ghost beaches to reconstruct quake history, confirming that dramatic changes have happened here before and will happen again. Some terraced shorelines stretch for miles, marking ancient high tide lines. Archaeologists find fire pits and artifacts from indigenous peoples, now stranded above the current surf. Sediment cores from these ghost beaches reveal alternating layers of soil and tsunami sand, documenting moments when the continent itself heaved upward in an instant. Chapter 8. Unusual ground tilt, the land's hidden language. Seismologists have begun tracking subtle tilts in the landscape across Oregon's coast, a type of invisible, slow-motion deformation. Why is the land slanting, and what does it mean? Tilt signals uneven stress accumulation. Using ultra-sensitive GPS, scientists pinpoint where the strain is greatest, especially near locked segments of the subduction zone. In hours during a megaquake, that tilt can reset, redistributing stress for the next cycle. Growing ground tilt foreshadows a region primed for violent release. Satellite imagery shows gentle but visible changes, with valleys pitching toward or away from the sea each year. Some streams wander along new paths, drawn by shifts so slight they're only visible over years. Fences previously set square twist imperceptibly over time. The slow-motion warning plays out daily, inscribed in every shifted barn, leaning tree, or warped tide line. Venture into Oregon's marshes and you may spot ghostly stumps emerging from the mud, remains of forests drowned centuries ago. Could these dead trees be markers left by ancient disasters? Yes, after a megaquake, the land can drop, plunging forests below sea level and creating ghost forests. Coupled with sand layers deposited far inland, they serve as chilling geological records, revealing the size and timing of tsunamis. Every new ghost forest confirmation adds to Cascadia's dangerous legacy. Scientists carbon date the stumps and match them with tsunami deposits as far as Japan. Some trunks remain upright, rooted in what once was dry soil, now dark, brackish marsh. The silent, skeletal remains stretch through the fog, silent witnesses to a day the sea claimed the land. Chapter 9. Tremor, migration, northward creeping, crisis. Recent data shows that tremor swarms are not just isolated, they're migrating northward along the coastline, almost like a burning fuse. What does it mean when seismic energy moves along a fault? This migration suggests the fault is transferring strain northward, potentially toward new rupture points. Seismologists worry the process could synchronize quake risk across broad areas, raising the chance of a multi-segment event. Using real-time seismic data, researchers are watching as tremors inch from southern to northern Oregon, Brookings to Newport to Astoria, sometimes leaping when pressure grows too great. Residents may not notice, but to scientists, the silent advance of tremors is an unmistakable red arrow on the tectonic dashboard. Not all earthquakes strike in a sudden blow. Much of Cascadia's energy is released in slow slip events, motions over weeks, invisible except to sensitive instruments. Are these slow slips harmless, or could they tip the system into disaster? Though slow slip events usually don't cause immediate damage, they redistribute stress along the fault, sometimes priming the system for a larger quake. The latest surges have coincided with more tremor swarms and coastal uplift, creating a volatile setup. Chapter 10. Fault linkage, the recipe for chain reaction. Recent studies have proposed that stress transfer between the Cascadia and San Andreas faults can occur, potentially enabling triggered ruptures if conditions align. Could an event on one fault send shockwaves through the other? Geological surveys show that faults can transmit stress across unexpected boundaries. While direct physical linkage is rare and not conclusively proven, computer models demonstrate that a megaquake in Cascadia could in theory load the San Andreas fault, or vice versa, and increase the chance of another rupture if both zones are critically stressed. Marine geologists using deep-sea drones and seismic reflection imaging have observed minor faults crisscrossing the subduction zone, acting as stress conduits. The possibility of a double rupture remains a scenario under scientific inquiry, shown in models but not observed in modern times. Nonetheless, West Coast emergency planning now considers cross-fault impacts in their risk assessments. Digging through Oregon's coastal sediment, researchers have found evidence supporting a once every 500 years cycle for major Cascadia quakes. How did scientists uncover this clock buried in the earth? The answer: layers of tsunami sand, drowned forests, and uplifted terraces align in a repeating geologic pattern, with evidence from Washington and Northern California. The last big one struck in 1700, with earlier events around 1310 and 600 AD, putting Oregon within the window for another catastrophic quake based on this cycle. Chapter 11. The Inescapable Subduction Zone, Oceanic Monster. All roads in this science story lead to one place, the Cascadia Subduction Zone, a deep ocean fault where the Juan de Fuca plate is plunging beneath North America. What makes this fault so uniquely destructive? Unlike smaller faults, subduction zones can move massive sections of crust at once. The length and depth of Cascadia mean it can generate mammoth earthquakes. When it slips, both the ground and seafloor can shift abruptly, unleashing tsunamis in seconds. The zone moves at mere centimeters per year, yet accumulates enough energy over centuries to lift mountains or alter river courses. Offshore, deep water robots reveal undersea scars, cliffs and trenches left by past megaquakes, stark reminders of the zone's power. When scientists simulate a full-length Cascadia rupture, the results are sobering. Shaking over hundreds of miles, followed by tsunamis and landslides. How can one rupture spiral into catastrophe for an entire region? Because so much of the zone remains locked. When it finally moves, energy is unleashed not just locally, but along the whole length. Bridges, power grids, and telecommunications can all fail together. Fires start, coastal roads buckle, and, if seismic systems are linked, a chain reaction could threaten the broader west coast. Chapter 12. Modern day, technologies race with time. With mounting evidence, researchers and emergency officials across Oregon are deploying sensors, tsunami sirens, and educational campaigns at a rapid pace. Is technology enough to outrace the ticking clock of geology? New GPS arrays, underwater pressure gauges, and real-time alert networks now blanket the region. As coastal uplift and tremor swarms increase, officials fear nature may strike before society is fully ready. Schools teach drop, cover, and hold on. Communities practice tsunami evacuations. Scientists roll out ShakeAlert, a notification system that may give critical seconds to prepare. Yet drills and gadgets can't guarantee survival. The race is steady, but the Earth waits for no one. Cities scramble to retrofit critical infrastructure and relocate vital resources away from the highest risk zones, though much remains to be done. The sense of urgency grows with every tremor. Chapter 13. Beneath our feet, Oregon's living warning. Here we are, the Oregon coastline, still windswept and beautiful, but now revealed as the front line of Earth's unstoppable forces. Each small rise in the ground, each distant tremor, is a silent message from deep below, warning that the subduction zone is building towards a day that may redefine the region. Will the next quake come in our lifetime? No one can say for certain, but with every new discovery, coastline uplift, migrating tremors, possible fault links, and accumulating stress, the message grows louder. This geological legacy cannot be ignored. Look out at the horizon, the cliffs and the beaches. Imagine what could happen in 5 violent minutes, and what stories, written in sand and stone, we will leave for generations to come. Today has taught us to respect the ancient power within the earth, and to never, ever mistake beauty for safety. Let us know which discovery truly surprised you in the comments. Is it the rising coastline, the tsunami legacy, or the ominous potential connections between the West Coast's greatest faults? Smash like, hit subscribe, and stay tuned for more journeys into the mysteries right beneath our feet. Until next time, stay curious, stay prepared, and always keep questioning the ground you stand on.